going on? Welcome to the Podfathers. My name's Tony, and today we're going to be talking about two former mob members, one by the name of John Elite.
So when someone said, "Did you kill Georgie Grasso?" I'll give you names. Did he shoot him in the head? Yes, I did. Did somebody say, "Did you kill Johnny Gabbett?" Yes, I did. I ordered him dead. Did you kill Bruce Goddard? Unfortunately, I'm friends with his family now. Yes, I did. I ordered him dead. Did you shoot Mike Lavegni in the chest? In protocols, he testified against you 25 years. Yes, I did. Did you shoot Ricky Stratton in the head on the Interborough Parkway? Johnny, did you shoot him? Yes, I did.
And the other by the name of Anthony Ruggiano Jr.
So I was literally born into the mob. Like I know, so I hear people, they went into the mob because they were infatuated by them, the way they dressed, the way, I literally, that's all I know from birth. When I got sentenced for the murder, the judge, Weinstein, asked me, how long have you been associated with the Gambino family? And I really meant it. And I said, since birth.
These are two former Gambino associates who both now have their own podcast and both claim that they have changed from their former lives and are no longer associated with the Mafia. These two men also can't really stop talking about each other. They kind of have a feud going. The question we're talking about today is, did these men really change? Are they reformed? Or is this just a whole act of convenience, and is this just convenient for them?
Let's do some quick backgrounds. I'm going to start with John Elite. He is from Queens, New York, and he grew up in an Albanian family that were also immigrants from Albania. And by his 20s, he was already deep in the Gambino family. He was deep in their crime family orbit, and he was running around with John Gotti Jr. He was a violent man. He admits to shootings, beatings, and in court under oath, involvement in 2 murders, with admitting to many more on social media.
So Anthony Ruggiano Jr. is a former member of the Gambino family. His father actually is Fat Andy, who was a Gambino capo and was the youngest made member during a period when the mob books were actually closed. Anthony, he's always grown up around the Mafia and organized crime. He was born into it. It's all he known. And it was such a big part of his life growing up. He's actually been sober for 37 years, and he works as a drug and alcohol counselor. And he has his own podcast called The Reformed Gangsters.
Father taught me how to be a criminal. I have no education, I have no skills. I get out of jail in 92 and I'm right back into the street. Now they proposed me. John Gotti's in jail now. I'm running around with these biggest gangsters in the country. I'm making more money now than I ever made in my whole life. Now, December of 1995, I'm sleeping. My doorbell rings 5 o'clock in the morning. I know what it is. I open up my eyes, I go, so I go down, I open up the door, there's 20 of them out there. They rush in, handcuff me, throw me on the couch. My poor daughter's in diapers. Daddy, are these your friends? And now I'm sitting on the couch, I'm going, what am I doing, And I get arrested. And I make a decision in that cell, like, I can't do this no more. And I do 8 years and 3 months. I get out, and I get my first legitimate job.
Elite has questioned Ruggiano's credibility. Ruggiano has questioned Elite's. Each one essentially accuses the other of being fake. And in doing that, they reveal a lot about themselves. Since this argument took place through social media, we figured it would be easier to recreate it rather than describe it, which is what Nick and Tyler are going to do right now. Nick as John Elite. Tyler as Anthony Ruggiano Jr.
Let me tell you something about the Gambino family. I was the one they called when something needed to get done, and I mean really done. They came to me, not to Gotti, to me. I ran with Junior, yeah, but don't confuse that with working for him. I was the one with the muscle. I was the one with the loyalty. And let's be clear about something. I cooperated, I testified, and I did it because I saw what this life actually was. It destroys everyone around it. I'm not hiding from that. I own it. That took more courage than anything in the street.
More courage, right? My father was Fat Andy Ruggiano, capo of the Gambino family. The youngest made member when the books were closed. My grandfather sat at the table with Anastasia. I didn't read about this life, I lived it. And when I walked away on my own terms. I didn't go running the government like John Elite. I made a choice. I got sober. I have a program now. I built something real. 37 years clean, I work with people every day who are fighting the same demons I fought in the family.
On his own terms? That's the way he wants to put it? You want to talk about loyalty? Let's talk about loyalty. The people who scream about Armada, the ladders are the ones who never really had anything to lose. I lost everything. Family, freedom, 20 years. And I still stood up in that courtroom and told the truth. Not for a deal, but because I was right. People calling me a rat. Fine, call me a rat. But who's profiting off the story? Who's selling the mob mystique on a podcast while pretending to be reformed? At least I'm honest about who I was.
Honest? He's going with honest? There's nothing honest about this lifestyle. I never said I was perfect. This life cost me something. It cost me years. It cost me relationships. It cost me my father in a prison cell. It cost me everything. And I made decisions I'm not proud of. But here's the difference between me and someone like Ali. I don't go on and televise my count of bodies like he does. I don't sit there and tell people how many men I shot like it was something to be proud of. I talk about my life so young people understand what it really looks like from the inside. Not the glamour, the damage. It's 37 years of putting yourself back together. I spent years on drugs. And I'm finally clean.
He's good. I'll give him that. You want to talk about change? I go into schools. I sit across from the 60-year-old kids who think the streets are the answer. Because no one has ever showed me anything different. And I tell them exactly who I was, exactly what I had to do, exactly what it cost. Not because it made me look good, but because someone had to say it. Is that perfect? No. Do I still live with what I did? Every single day. But what's the alternative? Stay quiet? That helps nobody.
Redemption isn't a press store. It's not a book deal. It's not a YouTube channel, mine included. It's what you do when nobody's watching. It's the person you talk to at 2 a.m. who's about to use again. It's the call you take on a Sunday. That's the work. That's the rest of it. Look, I understand it. I do it too. But let's not confuse the platform with its purposes.
So what you just watched was a recreation of these guys kind of not really liking each other, and that's real. These two guys have publicly attacked each other on many different platforms, criticizing each other, just don't really agree. And while doing this kind of reveals exactly why we're here today, to kind of see if these guys truly have reformed or if they are just doing this out of convenience for them, benefiting them, whether it's business-wise, money through their social media, or just the fame in general.
While cooperating with the FBI, he became the star witness testimony in the Gotti Jr. racketeering trial. This trial never ended in a conviction, it ended in a hung jury. So even the case that he was central to failed, but his redemption narrative kept growing. And there is an entire website, johnelitefacts.com, dedicated to describing the inconsistencies between his court testimony and his social media. So when your critics start building a narrative against you, that is a signal. Going back to Anthony Ruggiano Jr., he has a different but equally interesting problem. His speaker booking page leads with 14 years in federal prison. It's the first thing you see. but in 2014, he was sentenced in Brooklyn federal court for arranging the murder of his brother-in-law, Frank Bocchia, killed at an Ozone Park social club. His sentence was time served, 3 days. The judge, Jack Weinstein, explained to Bocchia's family why a longer sentence wasn't possible. His exact words, Ruggiano was a tool by the government to further destroy the remnants of his mafia. Frank Bocchia's family sat in that courtroom and heard that. And in years of public content, YouTube, podcasts, speaking appearances, there is no record of Ruggiano ever directly addressing him. And he discusses the murder as the origin of his own redemption arc, which centers himself in a story that should center them who are the victims of his actions.
What's interesting about Elite is that the attacks on him come from two complete opposite directions. His former mob associates call him a rat for working with the government. But law enforcement people say he made his crimes sound worse than they actually were, just to seem more important. So he'd be actually accused of two contradictory things at the same time, lying about how violent he was and portraying the people he was violent with. When nobody on either side believes you, that's not just a credibility problem. That's a very specific situation where your whole story falls apart from both ends at once.
Ruggiano's own explanation for why he left the mob, I think, reveals a lot about his character and mindset and like the background and why he made the decision. After his father died in prison, he stated that the mob began to show their true colors and that the life was becoming a joke. This shows that he didn't really leave because he thought that the lifestyle was wrong or it was hurting him, and he didn't feel guilty about it, but rather that he wasn't finding success anymore. And I think that really shows that his decision to reform wasn't genuine and that it was more fueled from the fact that he didn't feel safe in it anymore and he wasn't making as much money.
So both of these men have done real things that look like redemption. The speaking tours, those are real. The sobriety is real. The alcohol and drug counseling, that's real as well. But is this enough to kind of say that they've reformed? Like, have we seen any remorse towards the people affected throughout their lives working with the mafia? So this kind of gives us a question to kind of ask ourselves. Is this whole persona that they put on redemption, or is this kind of just a character that they put on because that's what everybody else wants to see?
All right, now let's follow the money, because if you want to understand if somebody's public persona is honest or convenient, you need to know how profitable it is for them and if the rewards equal what they're giving out. So let's start with John Elite. On YouTube, he has around 98,600 subscribers, nearly 17 million total views across 261 videos. According to current estimates from StarStat, his channel earns roughly $7,000 per month in ad revenue, which would be around $84,000 per year from YouTube alone. That's before speaking fees, which range from $1,000 to $10,000 per appearance that he does, and before book royalties from Gotti's Rules, before documentary appearance fees. So if you look at all of that and factor in what he makes from his podcast, from Instagram doesn't pay for views, so really just YouTube is his main ad revenue, and then sponsorships and brand deals and speaking. He's probably making roughly $200,000 per year. Now moving on to Anthony Ruggiano Jr. He joined YouTube in April of 2021 with around 25,000 subscribers, over 360 videos, more content than Elite, but significantly fewer viewers. His estimated ad revenue is $500 to $1,500 per month, and he also runs a Patreon, which offers live access and exclusive content, adding potentially several hundred to a few $100,000 monthly. Both men sell branded merchandise as well, and the Patreon is to help reformed gangsters like himself become reformed.
Even my last name. So my last name, Americanized, it's Ruggiano, but my father said it was pronounced Reggiano, not Ruggiano. He always pronounced it the correct way, but everybody else in his family pronounced it Ruggiano, like I pronounce it. He always pronounced it Reggiano. Even my last name.
So the key point to note here is that none of these men are getting rich purely from YouTube ads. While they are making good money, it's not their main income. Their real income comes from the ecosystem. It comes from the Patreon, the merch, speaking, books, and guest appearances on much larger channels, including Vlad TV, where appearing there doesn't pay them directly, but it drives thousands of new viewers back to their own monetized platforms. And what does that ecosystem reward? Sustained audience engagement, continued relevance, controversy, and what this basically means is the financial structure does not reward you quietly rehabilitating yourself in private. It rewards you staying proactive, staying connected to the mob nostalgia, and never fully walking away from the mystique that made you interesting in the first place.
So this creates an incentive to kind of stay half in, half out, not because they're like lying, but because the audience that pays them is the audience that came for that story.
He changed his behavior, but his whole brand is still built on the same oversized ego that caused him harm in the first place. In interviews, he lists his victims like they're proof of how powerful he was. He never actually addresses the people he hurt, and when he acts sorry, it feels like a performance, something he does because it's useful, not because he means it.
I think there is one part of Ruggiano's reform that is genuine, and that's his sobriety. He's been sober for 37 years since leaving the Mafia, and I don't think that's a performance, as he goes around and speaks about how drugs and alcohol basically ruined him while he was in it. But I also think it's very telling he never really mentions the hit he helped pull off on Frank Bosia, and I think the lack of public comment just shows he doesn't really genuinely care or feel bad about what happened, but rather he just kind of likes the spotlight and being able to talk.
My opinion is that it's structurally convenient for both men. I think both men profit from staying provocative, staying in the cliques, being entertaining while still telling the truth. I don't know if it's the full truth, but I think they are paid and the system pays them to give the slight truth and to keep people entertained. And I believe that's what they do. And they do it for the money and the convenience.
So I think both these men have shown genuine change, but also kind of have this performance being put on to the media, to the audience, and the audience what they want to see. And these guys have kind of found a world where it's impossible to separate the two from each other, because the podcast, it shows redemption, it shows that they've changed, but at the same time, we can look at the podcast and say this is a product of the people. They could be just saying this and lying and just putting on this character to get clicks, get views, and even make money as well. So I feel like it's kind of hard to pick one side, but at the end of the day, we do see some genuine change. So this has been the Podfathers, and thank you guys for watching.
Wait, nope, restart. It turned off, the computer turned off.
2, 1, go.
I grew up in this, my father was Fat Andy Ruggiano. Watch